matchsticks. This is juggling.
Scoop. Oh. Hey everyone, welcome to my home kitchen. This week's Genius recipe has some techniques for extremely crispy roast potatoes, and then they get tossed with some Indonesian flavors that also make them some of the most exciting tasting roast potatoes that I've ever had. A little twist in there. This recipe comes from Lara Lee and her gorgeous new cookbook, Coconut and Sambal. And we're going to be talking to Lara a little bit later so she can tell us more about this recipe. But in the meantime, she's also going to be giving us some fairy godmother style tips too. So look out for those. If all of that sounds very exciting to you, as it does to me, be sure to hit like and subscribe and you will get all of the Genius recipes from geniuses like Lara, as well as every other wonderful video that we're putting out on our channel at Food 52. The first thing we need to do is cut these potatoes. I already scrubbed them with a little scrubby brush and rinsed them.
Now don't be tempted to peel your potatoes because Indonesians have a no waste philosophy. So you want to keep those peels on. It's going to save you a lot of hassle in the kitchen and it's going to taste super scrumptious when it comes out of the oven.
As long as they're all about 1.5 inches thick at their thickest part, they'll cook pretty evenly. And it's okay if there's, I mean, it's hard to cut a round thing into 1.5 inch squares, obviously. So any parts that are gonna be thinner are gonna get crispier. Any parts that are thicker are gonna be creamier. They get piled in an empty pot and cold water will be added, as well as a tablespoon of salt, cold water, just to cover. And covering them with cold water and starting from there means that the outside of the potatoes won't completely break down before the insides are cooked, even though you're gonna do some stuff to break down the outsides later. That's a preview, a little tease. I'm going to be sticking my pan in the oven while the potatoes are boiling to get really, really hot with some oil.
Now, to get garlic as gorgeous as this, use a heavy bottom roasting tin when making your potatoes, but if you only have a thin one or a sheet pan, then don't worry, just add the garlic at the same time as when you add the potatoes to the pan.
I'm sorry, I will get WD-40 for the oven. I know people ask me every week. Okay, we have a rolling boil already. I'm gonna turn it down to a simmer. That pan is going to stay preheating in the oven with the oil getting super hot. In the meantime, here are some highlights from my conversation with Lara. I will meet you back here when it's time to do other cool stuff to these potatoes. Hi, Lara.
Kristen, hi, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm so good. It is just so great to speak to you. I'm super excited.
Would you please just start off by telling us the story behind this recipe?
You mean these potatoes? Why, this is just a little something I whipped up earlier, you know. I actually spent a lot of time in Indonesia. I was writing, shameless plug here, this book, Coconut and Sambal. And I was basically, I went to Indonesia to explore my Indonesian heritage because my father is from Timor. But along the way, I wanted to kind of capture the stories and recipes of not just my family, but families from all over Indonesia. So I kind of visited this area in East Java in a city called Surabaya, which is colorful and wonderful, but a little bit off the tourist track. And I met this group of women who had this kind of secretive cooking club. And the reason why it was secretive is because in Indonesia, it is quite culturally, if someone, you know, invites themselves to your house or, you know, wants to, you know, meet you for a coffee, it's actually quite rude to say no to someone if they say, oh, should we do this? Can I join you? So they didn't want every, you know, auntie, cousin, sister, friend of a friend joining this cooking club because they really only wanted very good home cooks to be part of this cooking club. So I managed to come across this secret cooking society of women in Surabaya, which is like invite only. And they invited me into their different homes, and there were, I think, eight women in total, and they would teach me these East Javanese recipes. And this is actually, the soy and ginger crispy potato recipe is very much inspired by and an adaptation of this original dish, but the original dish is a dish called sambal goreng kentang, which is essentially like a fried potato dish. So the potatoes are chopped and then fried in a wok in oil, and then stirred through with a really aromatic kind of spice paste of lots of lovely aromatics like ginger, like garlic, and then quite often stirred together with things like liver or gizzards. So I kind of took this recipe back. It was really, really delicious. I took this recipe back with me to London, and I thought, okay, I want to kind of recreate this in my home kitchen. And I don't mind deep frying, but I know a lot of people who are a little bit scared of deep frying at home. So I thought, okay, what can everyone do? Well, everyone can bake a roast potato. So I decided to kind of reinvent the recipe a little bit, but kind of using those flavors and kind of, staying true to like lovely Indonesian flavors like, the soya and the spring onions and the ginger and so on. And that's kind of how the dish came together. But it kind of really started as a secret society of women, which I loved, and that kind of generous hospitality that I got all over Indonesia, where everyone wants to teach you their family recipes. Thanks so much for having me, Kristen.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for all the tips you're going to share with us too. See? Okay. So now, actually, I'm not going to put them back on the hot burner. I'm going to put them over here. See how they are just kind of shaggy at the edges? We are going to shake them up so they get even shaggier and steam them for about 2 minutes, shaking here and there whenever we feel like it. Apparently I feel like it a lot. You want to do some?
No.
Okay.
I've already had my exercise for the month,
Oh, really?
is what I tell people.
Okay. Now we get to see what they look like. Wow. So the outsides have turned to mashed potato, and the gelatinized starches inside of the potatoes have come to the surface, and those are going to crisp really nicely in the hot oil, which we're going to do over here. This is so hot. Don't dump your potatoes all straight from the pot in there. Ooh, do you hear that already starting to sizzle? Because if you dump straight from the pot, you may end up splattering some oil on yourself. Be cautious, scoop it like me. And I won't tell you how I know that. Just trust me. Oh, I do need to toss them around in the oil a little bit so they're coated on all sides. Here, I'll start over here. Okay, I can take this off now. I was being a little extra cautious. Oh, and this is a good moment to add my garlic cloves. If you haven't already, if you had a nice, thick, heavy pan, as I do not. Salt and pepper is important, but you don't need to go too wild with it, because these potatoes are going to get some very, very exciting flavors, including a decent amount of salt later on. But adding some salt here is going to help them not just be salty on the outside, but on the inside too. Oh wow, these are going to get so shaggy, crusty, crispy in the oven. Okay, so these need to go back in the same 425 degree Fahrenheit oven for about 45 minutes, but keep an eye on them. Maybe halfway through, give them a peek, see if they're getting brown and turn them over. They're going to be really good. While those potatoes are in the oven, I'm going to chop up all of the aromatics that are going to get stir-fried and tossed with them. I'm going to start with scallions. One thing that's really great about this recipe is that you do chop a few things, but you're not finely mincing them, so it all comes together pretty quickly. These are chopped in pretty big chunks, about 3 centimeters, so a little over an inch. So you're treating scallions almost more like a vegetable than like, you know, an herb that you would mince up teeny tiny. So it brings a lot of extra texture. You know, you get these crispy potatoes, but then you get all this great texture from all of the vegetables you're stir frying too. Next, I'll deal with this ginger. Sometimes I don't peel my ginger because Anita Jaisingani, who is the chef at Pondicherry Restaurant, told me that she never does, and so sometimes I take it as my permission to not do it as well. And I kind of like the extra texture that it adds. I would love to know from all of you actually, do you always peel your ginger? Unlike in so many recipes that have us mince ginger really finely until it almost disappears in a dish, this one is really celebrating the texture of ginger itself, and you're just cutting it into sort of thin matchsticks. So you'll get big bursts of ginger flavor and texture tossed around with the potatoes. So first I'm just slicing it thinly one direction, and then I'll stack it up and slice it thinly into matchsticks-ish. And then 8 garlic cloves thickly. Nope. 8 garlic cloves thinly sliced. For me, they might be thickly sliced. All of my aromatics are ready to be quickly stir-fried when the potatoes are just about ready to come out. I also can stir together one last thing that is really going to bring these potatoes together in the most delicious way, which is a soy vinegar dressing, which is literally just equal parts light soy sauce and rice vinegar, or white wine vinegar if that's what you have. And when I first saw this recipe, I was immediately drawn in by the crispiness of the potatoes and the like delicious aromatics that were stir-fried with it, and the sound of it sounded so good, but I had to know if putting a dressing like this over roasted potatoes would immediately make them soggy or if they would still hold on to their crispiness. And because of how great this technique is for getting them very, very crunchy on the outside, they hold up really, really well. And the dressing is able to just kind of sneak in and flavor the insides of the potatoes a little bit, and enough of it bounces off so that you want to just like drag, as you're cutting into your potatoes, you drag bites through the bottom too, as well as anything else you're eating for dinner. Like we had these for dinner last night with fried eggs. So good. Mike fries his eggs. I think I'm on 4 tablespoons.
We'll check the tape.
We had it with fried eggs for dinner last night. Mike is the egg fryer in the family, and he makes them with really, really crispy edges and keeps the yolks really runny. So all of that with this dish is a very good way to have it for dinner. But Laura told me that in Indonesia, it is actually typically served with rice. This is the main, and it's served along with rice and some sambal. So that's another way that you could have it. Just make this the center of your plate, because honestly, it's going to steal the show no matter what you put on the side of it. So just focus on it instead. Let's check these out. I think they might be ready for a flip. Ooh, wow, yeah. I want the potatoes to get browner, but this garlic is already like just really like beautifully caramelized and still soft inside. So I think I'm gonna just pull it before it gets too dark. And that way I can let the potatoes keep crisping as much as I want. Just gonna heat a couple tablespoons of oil in a big skillet. And all of these things just get quickly stir-fried together for 2-3 minutes. And they'll get soft, a little golden, and then they'll just get stir-fried through the potatoes. As Laura mentioned, she got this dish from this secret cooking society in East Java that she was lucky enough to be invited to, but her book is so full of dishes like this from regions all over Indonesia, from her travels there as well as from her own family. And I was so lucky to get to hear a lot more about them, and that's all in this week's episode of the Genius Recipe Tapes, which is anywhere that you find your podcast, and we'll also put a link in the show notes. So please don't miss that. Lara has so many incredible stories, and they will make you want to cook everything in her book. Okay, those smell incredible, looking good. I think our potatoes are looking pretty good too.
Crispy, golden, perfectly roasted potatoes. But what's missing, Kristen? It's the dressing and the ginger and the spring onions. So the key to serving this perfectly for your guests and to yourself is to only dress it in the spring onions and the dressing when you're ready to eat them.
Okay, that is done. All that needs to happen is for it to cool off just enough to take a bite. Do you want to try a potato? Or you just brought your own snacks? You want to try a potato like Mom?
Kristen, you are in for a treat because these are crunchy, delicious, and about to go in my mouth. Here we go. Ready? Did you hear that crunch?
It's so good. It's still super crunchy. It's salty, it's tangy. I just want to keep diving in for more. Oh, do you want to get a potato? There's a good one for you. Oh, you know what? These little crunchy chips are really good. You want to try one? Like the potatoes? Like the potatoes.
All right, the review is in.
She likes the potatoes. I like the potatoes. I think you will really like the potatoes. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Eat these potatoes as often as you can, and we will see you in 2 weeks. One more thing. I don't know if I have mentioned to you all, but I have been working on a Genius Beginner's Cookbook for a couple years now, and I'm getting to the point where I have a lot of the table of contents filled in, but I'm still looking for a few specific types of recipes, and I would really love your help. So on Food 52, in the article for these potatoes, I'm including a list of the recipes that I'm still hunting for, and I would love your thoughts. So please check that out. I'd love to talk to you more about the things that you look for in beginner cookbooks and the recipes that made a huge difference for you when you were first starting out, or just things that bother you in beginner cookbooks or in any cookbooks. All of those things still could make a big difference on this book in the end, and so I would really value your input. Thank you so much. You can either comment in the comments here on YouTube, or you can comment on Food 52, and I would love to talk to you more about it. Thank you, as always, for your help and your advice.
All right, Rob, cut it after
Good.
help.